In the heart of a Las Vegas penthouse, Roman Varela stood at the window, watching the city bleed neon into the desert night. 3 years without feeling anything. 3 years since the betrayal that killed every soft part of him. Behind him, a girl with frightened eyes and bruised wrists waited to hear whether he would throw her back into the street or keep her for reasons she didn't understand. She had stumbled into his territory by mistake, this fragile Texas runaway with nowhere left to go. He should have turned her away. He didn't. That choice would break them both before it saved them. If you want to see how a man who forgot how to feel falls for the one woman he should never touch, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The first time Roman Varela saw Ivy Bennett, she was bleeding. Not dramatically. Not enough to call attention in a city that specialized in spectacle. Just a thin line of red running down her temple where someone's ring had caught her during the scuffle outside the Crimson Room. She stood in the alley behind the club with her shoulders pulled in tight, one hand pressed to the cut, the other clutching a canvas bag that looked like it held everything she owned. Roman had stepped out the back exit to escape another tedious conversation about territory and percentages. He ran half the serious business in Las Vegas, which meant he spent most nights listening to men who wanted things from him. Money, protection, permission to operate in neighborhoods he controlled. It exhausted him in a way that had nothing to do with being tired. He saw the girl and stopped walking. She didn't notice him at first. She was too busy staring at the blood on her fingers like she couldn't quite believe it was hers. 22, maybe 23. Dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail, clothes that had been cheap when they were new and were now just worn. She looked lost in the specific way people looked when they had run out of places to run. "You need to move," Roman said. She jerked her head up. Her eyes went wide when she saw him, and he watched her do the mental calculation every smart person did when they encountered him in a dark alley. Tall, broad-shouldered, expensive suit, the kind of face that didn't smile much. She took a half step back. "I'm going," she said quickly. Her accent was southern. Texas, probably. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to—" "You're dripping blood on the pavement." She touched her forehead again and looked at her hand like she'd forgotten about the cut. "It's nothing. I just need to—" She glanced past him toward the street, and he saw her swallow hard. "I need to go." "Someone chasing you?" "No." She said it too fast. Roman tilted his head slightly. He had been reading people for a living since he was 16 years old, and this girl was a terrible liar. "The guy who hit you, he's still inside?" "He didn't—" She stopped, took a breath. "Look, I don't want trouble. I'll leave." "That's not what I asked." She stared at him for a long moment, and he saw the exact second she decided he wasn't going to let her walk away without an answer. Her shoulders sagged just a fraction. "He's inside. But it's fine. It was my fault." "Your fault." "I bumped into him. He got mad. I should have been paying attention." Roman studied the cut on her forehead. It was shaped wrong for an accidental collision. Someone had backhanded her, and the ring they were wearing had torn the skin. He felt something flicker in his chest, distant and cold, like a match striking in a room with no oxygen. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Ivy." "Ivy." "Bennett." "You're not from here, Ivy Bennett." "No." "How long have you been in Vegas?" 3 days." "Where are you staying?" She didn't answer that one, just shifted her weight and looked down at her shoes. Roman almost walked away. He should have walked away. This girl with her bleeding forehead and her one bag and her obvious problems was none of his business. He had enough complications in his life. He didn't need to collect broken strangers from alleyways. But he didn't walk away. "Come with me," he said instead. Ivy's head snapped up. "What? You're hurt. You have nowhere to go. Come with me." "I don't—" She shook her head quickly. "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I don't know you." "That's true. And you could be—" She stopped herself, but he knew what she'd been about to say. "You could be dangerous. You could be worse than what I'm running from." She wasn't wrong. "I could be," Roman agreed. "But the man who hit you is inside that club, and you're standing in an alley bleeding with nowhere to sleep tonight. So you can take your chances with me, or you can take your chances with Las Vegas. Your choice." He watched her think about it. watched her eyes dart toward the street again, toward the club entrance, back to him. She was weighing terrible options, trying to figure out which one would hurt her least. He recognized that look. He'd seen it on his own face once, a long time ago. "Okay," she said finally, so quietly he almost didn't hear it. Roman nodded once. "Follow me." He turned and walked toward the black SUV idling at the curb. Behind him, he heard her hesitate, heard her shoes scuff against the pavement. Then she followed. His driver, Marcus, didn't react when Roman opened the back door and gestured for Ivy to get in. Marcus had worked for him for 8 years and had learned not to ask questions. Ivy climbed into the vehicle carefully, like she was afraid it might bite her. Roman slid in beside her and pulled the door shut. "Where to, boss?" Marcus asked. "Home." Marcus put the car in gear. Ivy sat rigid in her seat, hands folded in her lap, staring straight ahead. Roman could see her pulse jumping in her throat. She was terrified, trying not to show it, failing badly. "Relax," he said. She didn't relax. "What happened to your face?" he asked. "I told you, I bumped into someone. And he hit you for it." "It was an accident." "No, it wasn't." She turned to look at him then, and there was something sharp in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Why do you care?" "I don't." "Then why ask?" "Good question." Roman leaned back against the leather seat and watched the strip slide past the tinted windows. "I'm curious." "About what?" "What brings a girl from Texas to Vegas with nothing but a bag and bad luck?" Ivy's jaw tightened. "That's not your business. You're in my car. You told me to get in. You didn't have to listen. You're right." She reached for the door handle. "Stop the car." "No." She yanked on the handle anyway. It didn't open. Child locks. "Let me out," she said, and now there was real fear in her voice, the kind that came from experience rather than imagination. Roman didn't move. "Calm down. Let me out right now or I swear." "You'll what?" He kept his voice level, almost bored. "Scream? We're on Las Vegas Boulevard at 11 o'clock on a Friday night. No one's going to hear you. Fight me? You weigh maybe 110 pounds. Jump out of a moving vehicle? We're going 45 miles an hour. You want to try any of those things? Go ahead. Or you can sit back, keep your mouth shut, and let me help you. And let me help." She stared at him. Her breathing was too fast, her eyes too wide. He could see her running through every possible outcome, every potential disaster. Finally, slowly, she let go of the door handle. "That's better," Roman said. "I don't need your help," Ivy said, but there was no conviction in it. "Yes, you do. You don't know anything about me. I know you're running from something. I know you have no money and nowhere to stay. I know someone hurt you tonight and you tried to convince yourself it was your fault because that's easier than admitting you're in over your head. Am I wrong about any of that?" She didn't answer. "That's what I thought." They drove in silence for the rest of the trip. Marcus navigated off the strip into the residential areas where old money lived behind gates and walls. Ivy's eyes widened slightly when they pulled up to the security checkpoint at Roman's property. The guard waved them through without a word. The house sat at the end of a long driveway. Not a mansion, exactly, but close. Modern lines, lots of glass, strategically placed lights making it look more like a piece of architecture than a place where people actually lived. Roman saw Ivy take it all in and watched her shrink a little further into herself. Marcus parked in the circular drive. Roman got out and waited for Ivy to follow. She did slowly, clutching her bag against her chest like a shield. "This way," Roman said. He led her through the front entrance into a foyer with 20-foot ceilings and abstract art on the walls that cost more than most people made in a year. Ivy stopped just inside the door, looking around like she'd walked into a museum after hours. "Come on," Roman said. He took her upstairs to one of the guest rooms. Large bed, attached bathroom, a balcony overlooking the pool. He flipped on the lights. "You'll stay here," he said. Ivy stood in the doorway, not moving. "There are towels in the bathroom," Roman continued. "Clean clothes in the closet. Might not fit, but they're better than what you're wearing. You need food. There's a kitchen downstairs. You need anything else? My room's at the end of the hall. Don't leave the property without telling me." "Why are you doing this?" Ivy asked. Roman looked at her. Really looked at her. She was still bleeding a little, still holding that bag like it was the only thing tethering her to the world, still scared out of her mind, but trying desperately not to show it. "I haven't decided yet," he said. Then he walked out and closed the door behind him. Ivy didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of the bed in the too-big room in the too-big house and tried to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so fast. 3 days ago, she'd gotten off a Greyhound bus with $400, a fake ID, and a plan that had seemed reasonable at the time: disappear into Vegas, find work, stay invisible, build a new life where her stepfather couldn't reach her. Instead, she'd burned through half her money on a roach-infested motel room, gotten fired from the one waitressing job she'd managed to land, and tonight she'd been stupid enough to walk into a club where the bouncers didn't care that she was broke and desperate and just needed a chance. The man who'd hit her had been standing near the bar. She'd been trying to get the manager's attention, hoping to talk her way into a serving position, and she'd bumped into him. Stumbled against his shoulder because someone had shoved past her in the crowd. He'd spun around with fury already on his face, like he'd been waiting for an excuse. "Watch where you're going, bitch." She'd apologized, tried to back away. He'd grabbed her arm hard enough to leave bruises and shoved her toward the exit. When she'd tried to pull free, his ring had caught her temple and torn the skin. The bouncers had thrown her out. No one had helped. And then Roman Varela had appeared in that alley like something out of a nightmare she didn't know she was having. Ivy pressed her hands against her face and tried to breathe. She'd seen men like him before, men who wore power like other people wore cologne, men who looked at women the way someone might look at a stray dog, calculating whether it was worth the effort to kick or keep. Her stepfather had been that kind of man. She should leave. She should wait until the house went quiet and then slip out and run and never look back. But she was so tired of running, and that bed looked soft, and for the first time in 3 days, she was warm. Ivy stood up and walked to the bathroom. Someone had stocked it like a hotel. Shampoo, soap, toothbrush still in the package, first aid kit under the sink. She cleaned the cut on her forehead, wincing when the antiseptic stung. It wasn't deep. It would scar, probably. One more mark to add to the collection. She took a shower that lasted 20 minutes because the hot water didn't run out, and no one banged on the door telling her to hurry up. She washed her hair twice, stood under the spray until her skin turned pink, and the last 3 days started to feel a little less real. When she got out, she found the clothes Roman had mentioned. Designer labels she didn't recognize, sizes that didn't quite fit. She pulled on a t-shirt that hung to her knees and a pair of sweatpants she had to roll at the waist. Then she climbed into the bed and lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But Roman didn't go to bed. He stood in his office with a glass of whiskey he wasn't drinking and tried to figure out what the hell he was doing. Bringing a stranger into his home was stupid for about 15 different reasons, most of them involving security and liability and the fact that he didn't know this girl from anyone. But he couldn't stop seeing the way she'd looked at her own blood. Like she was surprised anyone had hurt her. Like she'd expected better from the world despite all evidence to the contrary. It reminded him of someone. He pushed that thought away. His phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. "You want me to run a background check?" Roman typed back. "No, boss, you sure?" "She could be..." I said no. He set the phone down and stared out the window at the city spreading gold and red across the desert. Vegas at night looked like a promise. Like if you were brave enough, or stupid enough, or desperate enough, you could be anyone, have anything, start over completely. It was a lie, of course. You couldn't start over. You could only move forward carrying everything you'd already done, everyone you'd already been. Roman knew that better than most. He'd built his empire on that knowledge. He'd been 17 when he figured out that fear was more valuable than affection, control more useful than trust. His father had taught him that lesson the hard way, beating it into him with fists and belts and lit cigarettes until Roman stopped trying to be good and started learning how to be powerful instead. By 25, he'd taken over half the family's operations. By 30, he'd eliminated everyone who'd ever called him soft. Now, at 33, he ran Las Vegas the way other men ran corporations. Clean on the surface, ruthless underneath, always 3 moves ahead of everyone else. And he felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pride, not even the anger that used to drive him. Just a vast, cold emptiness where emotions were supposed to live. Until tonight. Until that girl in the alley with blood on her face and nowhere to go. Roman threw back the whiskey and felt it burn. He needed to get rid of her. First thing in the morning, give her some cash, put her on a bus, send her anywhere that wasn't here. But even as he thought it, he knew he wouldn't. He wanted to know what she was running from. He wanted to know if she'd look at him differently when she figured out who he really was. He wanted... Roman stopped that line of thinking. Want was dangerous. Want made you vulnerable. Want made you weak. He set the glass down and went to check the security feeds. Woke. Ivy woke up to sunlight streaming through windows she'd forgotten to close and the smell of coffee drifting up from somewhere downstairs. For exactly 3 seconds, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came crashing back. Roman Varela, the house, the choice she'd made. She sat up too fast and her head spun. When was the last time she'd eaten? Yesterday morning, maybe. A stale muffin from a gas station. She got out of bed and crept to the door. Pressed her ear against it. Silence. Maybe he'd already left. Maybe she could slip out without having to face him, without having to explain herself or figure out what he wanted from her. She opened the door slowly. The hallway was empty. Thick carpet, more expensive art, everything pristine and untouchable. She made her way to the stairs and started down, moving as quietly as possible. "You're awake." Ivy froze halfway down the staircase. Roman stood in the foyer below, looking up at her. He'd changed clothes since last night. Dark jeans, white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, no shoes. It should have made him look casual. It didn't. He still looked like someone who could end you without raising his voice. "I made coffee," he said. "You hungry?" Ivy didn't know what to say to that. "Come on." He turned and walked toward what she assumed was the kitchen. She followed because she didn't know what else to do. The kitchen was huge, all stainless steel and marble, an island in the center big enough to seat 8 people. Roman was pulling things out of the refrigerator, eggs, cheese, vegetables. He glanced at her. "Sit." Ivy sat on one of the bar stools at the island and watched him crack eggs into a bowl like this was completely normal, like he brought homeless girls back to his mansion all the time and cooked them breakfast. "How's your head?" he asked without looking up. "Fine." "Let me see." "It's fine," she repeated. He looked at her then, and she felt that gaze like a physical weight. "Let me see." Ivy brushed her hair back from her forehead. The cut had scabbed over during the night, an angry red line that would definitely scar. Roman studied it for a moment, then went back to whisking eggs. "Could have been worse." "Yeah." "You want to tell me what you're running from?" There it was, the question she'd been dreading. "No," Ivy said. "Fair enough." He poured the eggs into a hot pan and they sizzled. Added cheese, diced peppers, moved everything around with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. It was strange watching him, this man who looked like he should have people cooking for him, doing it himself in bare feet in his own kitchen. "Why am I here?" Ivy asked. "You needed a place to stay." "But why did you care?" Roman didn't answer right away. He plated the omelet, added toast, slid it across the island to her. Then he poured 2 cups of coffee and sat down across from her. "Eat," he said. Ivy looked at the food. Her stomach cramped with hunger, but she didn't move. "It's not poisoned," Roman said dryly. "That's not—" She stopped, picked up the fork, took a bite. It was good, really good. She took another bite, then another, and before she knew it, she was halfway through the omelet and trying not to cry. "When's the last time you ate?" Roman asked. "Yesterday." "Before that?" "I don't know, a couple days." He sipped his coffee and watched her. "What's your plan?" "My plan?" "You came to Vegas for a reason. What was it?" Ivy set down her fork. "I need to work. I need money. I need to—" She stopped. She couldn't tell him about her stepfather. Couldn't explain that she'd run away from Texas in the middle of the night, because if she'd stayed even one more day, something terrible was going to happen. Couldn't admit that she had no skills, no experience, nothing to offer, except a willingness to try. "You need to disappear," Roman finished for her. She didn't deny it. "From who?" "It doesn't matter. It matters if they come looking for you." "They won't," Ivy said, but she didn't sound convincing even to herself. Roman was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I have a proposition for you." Ivy's chest tightened. Here it comes. The real reason he'd brought her here, the thing he actually wanted. "What kind of proposition?" she asked carefully. "You need money and a place to stay. I need—" He paused, seemed to be choosing his words. "I need someone I can trust. You don't know me."
"No. But you don't know me either, which makes us even." "That doesn't make sense." "It does in my world." Ivy pushed the plate away. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to work for me." "Doing what?" "Whatever I need, running errands, keeping the house organized, being present when I have business meetings at home." "You want a maid?" "I want someone who can be invisible when necessary and visible when useful. Someone who doesn't have ties to this city. Someone who has reasons to keep her mouth shut." "And in exchange?" "You live here. I pay you. You stay off the grid. No one knows who you are or where you came from." It sounded too easy, too convenient. "What's the catch?" Ivy asked. Roman smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "The catch is that you belong to me while you're here. You don't leave without permission. You don't talk to people I don't approve. You don't make friends. Don't get close to anyone. Don't build a life outside these walls. You're mine until I say otherwise." Ivy felt something cold settle in her stomach. "That sounds like a prison. That sounds like safety. How is that safe?"
"Because as long as you're mine, no one else can touch you. Not the man who hit you last night, not whoever you're running from. No one." She stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "Because I can." That's not an answer. Roman leaned back in his chair, studying her with those dark, unreadable eyes. "You want the truth? I'm curious. I want to see what happens when someone like you exists in my world. I want to see how long it takes before you break or run or try to change me. And when that happens, I want to see if I feel anything about it." Ivy's hands were shaking. She clasped them together in her lap. "What if I say no? Then I'll give you $500 and a ride to the bus station, and you can try your luck somewhere else." "And if I say yes?" "Then you're mine." The word hung between them. Mine. Possessive and absolute and terrifying. Ivy knew she should say no, should take the money and run and never look back. This man was dangerous. This arrangement was dangerous. Everything about this was screaming at her to get out while she still could. But $500 wouldn't last. The bus would just take her to another city where she'd be alone and scared and one mistake away from ending up exactly where she'd started. At least here, she'd have a roof over her head. At least here, she wouldn't be running anymore. "Okay," Ivy heard herself say. Roman's expression didn't change. "Okay? Yes, I'll do it. You understand the terms? You want me to work for you and stay here and not ask questions and belong to you, I understand." "And you agree?" Ivy nodded. Roman stood up, extended his hand across the island. "Then we have a deal." She looked at his hand, large, scarred knuckles, a silver ring on his right middle finger, the hand of someone who'd hurt people before and would hurt them again without hesitation. Ivy reached out and shook it. His grip was firm, but not crushing. He held on a second longer than necessary, his thumb brushing across her pulse point like he was measuring her heartbeat. "Welcome home, Ivy Bennett," he said. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that she'd just made either the best decision of her life or the worst. She just didn't know which one yet. The first week, Ivy barely saw him. Roman left instructions on the kitchen counter each morning before she woke up. Lists written in sharp, precise handwriting that told her exactly what he expected. Clean the main living areas, organize his office, pick up dry cleaning from an address in Henderson. She followed the instructions because that was the deal, and because staying busy kept her from thinking too hard about what she'd agreed to. The house was too big for one person. Too quiet. She'd grown up in a cramped apartment in Dallas where the walls were thin and the neighbors fought constantly and you could never escape the noise. Here, her footsteps echoed. She could go hours without hearing another human voice. Marcus came by twice a day. Once in the morning to check if she needed anything, once in the evening to make sure she was still there. He didn't talk much, just nodded, looked around, left. Ivy got the feeling he was reporting back to Roman, keeping tabs, making sure she didn't steal the silver or burn the place down. On the 8th day, Roman came home while she was cooking dinner. She heard the front door open and her whole body tensed. She'd been standing at the stove making pasta because it was cheap and she knew how, and the kitchen had every ingredient she could possibly need. She turned off the burner and wiped her hands on a dish towel, waiting. Roman walked into the kitchen and stopped when he saw her. He looked tired. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie loosened, his jaw tight like he'd been clenching it for hours. "You cook?" he asked.
"I'm making dinner," Ivy said. "I wasn't sure if you'd be home, but there's enough for two if I'll eat." He pulled off his tie and tossed it on the counter, then sat down at the island in the same spot he'd occupied that first morning. Ivy turned back to the stove and tried to keep her hands from shaking. She plated the pasta, added the sauce she'd made from scratch because she didn't know what else to do with herself all day. Set it in front of him with silverware and a napkin. Roman looked at it for a moment. Then he picked up his fork and took a bite. Ivy stood there awkwardly, not sure if she was supposed to leave or sit down or what. "Sit," Roman said without looking up. She sat. He ate in silence for a full minute before he spoke again. "You've been keeping the place clean. That's what you asked me to do." "The office looks good." "Thank you. Marcus says you haven't left the property. You told me not to leave without permission." Roman set down his fork and looked at her. Really looked at her, the way he'd done that first night, like he was trying to figure out what she was made of. "Are you always this obedient?" he asked. Ivy bristled. "I'm keeping my end of the deal." "That's not what I asked." "Then what are you asking?" "I'm asking if you're a person who does what she's told because she's scared or because she doesn't know how to do anything else." The question hit harder than it should have. Ivy felt her face flush. "Does it matter?" "To me? No. But it might matter to you eventually." She didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. Roman went back to eating. "This is good," he said after a moment. "It's just pasta. It's better than what I usually eat." "Which is?" "Whatever Marcus brings me. Takeout, mostly." Ivy frowned. "You have a kitchen like this and you eat takeout?" "I don't have time to cook. Everyone has time to cook." "Not everyone," Roman said. There was something sharp in his voice, a warning edge that told her she was pushing into territory she didn't understand. She backed off, picked up her own fork. They ate together in a silence that felt both comfortable and excruciating, and Ivy tried not to think about how surreal this was. A week ago, she'd been sleeping in a roach motel, wondering if she'd have to sell her blood to make rent. Now she was having dinner with a man who looked like he could buy and sell entire neighborhoods without blinking. "I need you to do something for me tomorrow," Roman said. "Okay. I'm having a meeting here, 7 p.m., 3 men, business associates. I need you to be present." Ivy's stomach dropped. "Present how?" "Visible. In the room. Not speaking unless spoken to." "Why?" "Because it helps if they think I have a life outside of work. Makes them underestimate me." "You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend?" "I want you to sit on the couch and look pretty while I negotiate a deal. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. Just be there." Ivy set down her fork. "That wasn't part of our deal. Our deal was that you work for me. This is work." "This is—" She stopped herself, trying to find the right words. "This feels different." "Different how?" "Like you're using me as a prop." Roman's expression didn't change. "That's exactly what I'm doing." The bluntness of it stung more than it should have. Ivy stood up, her chair scraping against the tile. "I need to think about it." "There's nothing to think about. You agreed to do what I ask. I'm asking. You said I'd be organizing your house and running errands. You didn't say anything about being eye candy for your business meetings. I said you'd do whatever I needed. This is what I need." Ivy's hands curled into fists at her sides. She wanted to throw something, wanted to tell him to go to hell. Wanted to walk out of this kitchen and this house and this whole impossible situation. But she didn't, because she had nowhere else to go. "Fine," she said. "I'll do it." Roman nodded once, like he'd never doubted she would. "Wear something nice. There's clothes in your closet that should work." "I know how to dress myself." "Good." He went back to eating like the conversation was over. Ivy stood there for another moment, fury and humiliation burning in her chest, then turned and walked out. She made it halfway up the stairs before she heard him call after her. "Ivy." She stopped, but didn't turn around. "Thank you for dinner," Roman said. She didn't respond, just kept walking. The next night,
Ivy stood in front of the mirror in her room and hated every inch of herself. She'd found the dress in the closet exactly where Roman said it would be. Black, simple, expensive. It fit her better than it had any right to, skimming her body in ways that made her feel exposed, even though it wasn't particularly revealing. She'd put on makeup for the first time in weeks, brushed her hair until it shined, forced herself to look like someone worth looking at. The girl in the mirror looked like a stranger. At 6:45, Ivy went downstairs. Roman was in the living room talking on his phone. He glanced at her when she entered, and something flickered across his face too quickly for her to read. He finished his call and slipped the phone into his pocket. "You clean up well," he said. Ivy didn't acknowledge the compliment. "Where do you want me?"
On the couch. You can read if you want, or just sit there. I don't care. Just don't engage with them unless they speak to you directly, and if they do, keep it brief. What's this meeting about? Territory disputes, revenue splits, things that don't concern you. If I'm going to be in the room, you're in the room because I want you there. You don't need to understand why. The doorbell rang. Roman straightened his cuffs. "Remember what I said?" Then he walked to the door, and Ivy had no choice but to follow his instructions. She sat on the couch with a book she wasn't reading and watched Roman let 3 men into his home. They were all older than him, all wearing suits that cost more than she used to make in 6 months. They looked at her with various degrees of interest and dismissal, and she felt their eyes crawl over her skin like insects. "Gentlemen," Roman said smoothly, "thank you for coming." They settled into chairs across from him. Ivy kept her eyes on her book and listened. The conversation started civil. Discussions about percentages and territories and who controlled what neighborhood, but within 10 minutes, the temperature in the room had shifted. One of the men, heavy-set with a thick New Jersey accent, leaned forward. "You're asking for too much, Varela." "I'm asking for what's fair," Roman replied. His voice was calm, but Ivy heard steel underneath. "Fair would be 50-50. Fair would be 70-30 in my favor, considering I'm the one providing the infrastructure." "That's not how we do business." "That's exactly how we do business. You just don't like it when you're on the wrong end of the split." The man's face reddened. "You think you can strong-arm us? You think you're untouchable?" Roman smiled, and it was the coldest thing Ivy had ever seen. "I don't think I'm untouchable. I know I control enough of this city that you can't afford to walk away from this table. So you can either accept my terms, or you can try to operate in Vegas without my cooperation and see how long that lasts." The silence that followed was suffocating. Then one of the other men laughed. "He's got balls, I'll give him that." The tension broke slightly. They kept talking, negotiating, pushing back and forth until finally they reached something that looked like an agreement. Hands were shaken, promises were made. The men stood to leave. "Nice meeting you, sweetheart," the New Jersey man said to Ivy as he passed. She looked up and gave him a tight smile. Didn't say a word. When they were gone, Roman closed the door and turned to face her. "You did well," he said. "I didn't do anything." "Exactly." Ivy stood up, her legs unsteady. "Is that what you needed? For them to see you have a woman waiting at home, for them to think you're normal?" "Something like that. I felt like furniture. You were furniture. Beautiful, expensive furniture that made them believe I have things to lose." He moved closer, and Ivy forced herself not to step back. "You don't understand my world yet, but you will. Every weakness is a weapon someone can use against you. Every person you care about is a potential hostage. By putting you in that room, I told them I have something soft in my life, something vulnerable. That makes me seem more human and less threatening. But it's not real. They don't know that." Ivy wrapped her arms around herself. "This is what you want from me? To be your fake vulnerability?" Roman studied her for a long moment. "Among other things." "What other things?" He didn't answer, just turned and walked toward his office, leaving her standing there in a dress she hated, playing a role she didn't understand. 3 weeks in, Ivy started writing. She didn't mean to. She'd never thought of herself as a writer. But the house was too quiet, and the days were too long, and she had too many thoughts screaming inside her head with nowhere to go. So she opened her laptop, the one she'd managed to hold on to through everything, and she started typing. At first it was just fragments. Scenes from her life rearranged and fictionalized. A girl running from a monster. A man who saved her but didn't know how to be saved himself. But the fragments started connecting, building into something larger. A story.
She wrote in the mornings before Roman left his instructions. She wrote in the afternoons when the house felt like it might swallow her whole. She wrote at night when she couldn't sleep because her mind wouldn't stop replaying the way Roman looked at her sometimes, like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. The story grew. It became a romance, because that's what her heart kept circling back to. A girl who'd lost everything, falling for a man who'd forgotten how to feel. She knew it was derivative, she knew it was probably terrible, but it was hers, and that mattered. One morning, she Googled how to publish a book online. The answers were surprisingly simple. Self-publishing platforms, cover design tools, beta readers who'd give feedback. She created an account under a pen name she made up on the spot, Elena Cross. Uploaded the first 3 chapters of her story, called it Shattered Crown. She didn't expect anything to happen, but 2 weeks later she had 50 reviews, then 100, then 1,000. People loved it. They loved the broken hero. They loved the girl who refused to be saved. They loved the tension between power and vulnerability, control and surrender. They begged her for more chapters. So she wrote more. It became her secret. The thing she did when Roman wasn't watching, the part of her life that belonged to no one but herself. Roman noticed the change in her. She was still obedient, still kept the house clean, still showed up when he needed her for meetings, still played her role without complaint. But there was something different in her eyes now, something that hadn't been there before. She looked less afraid. It bothered him more than it should have. He'd brought her into his home expecting her to break or run within a month. Women like her, soft and scared and clinging to hope, they didn't last in his world. They either shattered under the weight of what he was, or they got smart and left before he could destroy them completely. But Ivy wasn't breaking, and she wasn't leaving. She was adapting. He found himself watching her, studying the way she moved through his house like she belonged there. The way she cooked dinner and left a plate for him even when he came home at midnight. The way she sat on the couch during his business meetings looking bored and untouchable while men twice her age tried to get her attention. She was becoming part of the furniture, just like he'd wanted. So why did it feel wrong? One night he came home earlier than usual and heard music coming from upstairs. He followed the sound to her room and found the door slightly open. Ivy was sitting at her desk, headphones on, typing furiously on her laptop. She didn't hear him approach. Roman watched her through the crack in the door. Her face was lit by the screen, and she looked completely absorbed. Happy, almost. Like whatever she was doing mattered more than anything else in the world. It was the most alive he'd ever seen her. He knocked. Ivy jumped, yanking off her headphones and slamming the laptop shut in one motion. She spun around, eyes wide. "I didn't hear you come in," she said. "Clearly." Roman pushed the door open. "What are you working on?" "Nothing, just..." She stood up quickly, putting herself between him and the laptop. "Just email. Stuff. You're a terrible liar." "I'm not lying." "Then show me." "It's private." Roman raised an eyebrow. "I own this house. I own everything in it, including that computer." "You don't own me," Ivy shot back, and there was real fire in her voice now. He should have been angry, should have reminded her exactly what their arrangement was, what she'd agreed to. Instead, he felt something else, something that might have been respect if he still knew how to feel that. "Fair enough," he said. "Keep your secrets." He turned to leave. "Roman." He stopped. "Why did you really bring me here?" Ivy asked. "And don't give me that line about needing someone you can trust. That's not the truth." "How do you know?" "Because you don't trust anyone. I've watched you. I've seen how you operate. You keep everyone at a distance, even Marcus, who's worked for you for years. Even the people in your family who I've heard you talk to on the phone. You don't let anyone close, so why me? What made you pull me out of that alley?" Roman looked at her. This girl who'd been a stranger 5 weeks ago and was now standing in his house demanding answers he didn't have. "I told you," he said finally. "I was curious." "About what?" "About whether I could still feel anything if I tried hard enough. About whether bringing someone like you into my world would change anything." He paused. "It hasn't." The words came out harsher than he'd intended, and he saw them land like a slap. Ivy's expression shuddered. "Good to know," she said quietly. Roman left before he could say anything else he'd regret. After that night, something shifted between them. Ivy stopped cooking dinner, started eating in her room instead of at the island where he could see her. She still did everything he asked, But the small kindnesses disappeared. No more coffee waiting for him in the morning, no more questions about his day. She became exactly what he'd said he wanted: furniture. Present, but not really there. It should have been easier. It wasn't. Roman caught himself looking for her in the house, listening for her footsteps, coming home earlier hoping to catch her before she disappeared into her room. He told himself it was just habit, just his brain adjusting to having another person in his space. But that was a lie. 2 months in, his sister came to visit. Natalia Varela was everything Roman wasn't: warm, expressive, quick to laugh, and quicker to anger. She worked in the family business but hated it, stayed because loyalty mattered more than happiness. When she walked into Roman's house unannounced, she found Ivy in the kitchen washing dishes. "Who the hell are you?" Natalia asked. Ivy turned, startled. I work here." "You work here?" Natalia looked her up and down. "Doing what exactly?" "Housekeeping, errands, whatever Roman needs." "Whatever Roman needs?" Natalia's eyes narrowed. "Is my brother paying you to sleep with him?" "No," Ivy said quickly, her face flushing. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" It's complicated." "I bet it is." Roman appeared in the doorway. "Natalia, what are you doing here?" "Checking on my emotionally stunted brother." "Who's the girl?" "None of your business." "Everything about you is my business. That's what family means." Natalia turned back to Ivy. "I'm Natalia, Roman's infinitely more charming younger sister. And you are?" "Ivy Bennett," Ivy said hesitantly. "Ivy Bennett, pretty name. You from Vegas?" "Texas. Long way from home." "Natalia," Roman said, his voice holding a warning. "What?" "I'm just making conversation." Natalia smiled, but there was steel underneath it. "Ivy, can I talk to you for a minute? Alone?" "She's busy," Roman said. "No, I'm not," Ivy said, surprising them both. Natalia grinned. "I like her. Come on, let's go sit by the pool." Before Roman could object, Natalia had linked her arm through Ivy's and was steering her toward the back door. Roman watched them go and resisted the urge to follow. Outside, Natalia led Ivy to the pool chairs and sat down, patting the one beside her. "So," Natalia said, "how long have you been living here?" "About 2 months." "And my brother is treating you well?" Ivy hesitated. "He's keeping his end of our arrangement." "That's not what I asked." "I'm fine." Natalia studied her. "You're scared of him." "I'm not. It's okay. Everyone's scared of Roman. Even me, sometimes. He's worked very hard to make sure of that." She leaned back in her chair. "But here's the thing about my brother. He's not as cold as he pretends to be. He's just convinced himself that feeling things makes you weak, so he shut it all down. And now he doesn't know how to turn it back on even when he wants to." "Why are you telling me this?" Ivy asked. "Because you're the first person he's brought into this house in 3 years. The first person he's allowed to exist in his space without keeping them at arm's length. That means something." "It doesn't mean anything. I work for him. If that's all you were, you'd be living in staff quarters, not in a guest room with a view. You'd be getting orders through Marcus, not having dinner with him." Natalia smiled. "My brother doesn't know what to do with you, and that terrifies him, which, frankly, I find hilarious." Ivy didn't know what to say to that. "Be careful," Natalia said, her tone shifting to something more serious. "Roman's world is dangerous. The people in it don't play by normal rules. If you're going to stay, you need to understand that." "I'm not planning to stay," Ivy said. "This is temporary." "Is it?" Before Ivy could answer, Roman appeared at the door. "Natalia, a word." Natalia stood, squeezing Ivy's shoulder. "Think about what I said." She disappeared inside. Ivy sat by the pool, staring at the water, wondering what the hell she'd gotten herself into, and whether there was any way out that didn't end with her heart in pieces. Inside, Roman cornered his sister in the hallway. "What did you say to her?" he demanded. "Nothing you don't already know." Natalia crossed her arms. "You care about her." "I don't." "Yes, you do. And it's killing you because you don't know what to do with it." "You're wrong." "I'm never wrong about you, big brother. You've been empty for 3 years. Now you're not. That should be a good thing." "It's not," Roman said flatly. "Why?" "Because it makes you vulnerable. Because it means you might actually have to feel something again? Because I'll destroy her, Roman said, and for the first time in years, there was something raw in his voice. That's what I do, Natalia. I take things, and I break them, and I don't even feel bad about it afterward. She's better off if I keep her at a distance. Natalia looked at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head. You're an idiot. Probably. Let her go, Roman. If you're not going to give her something real, let her go before you ruin her completely. I can't. Why not? He didn't have an answer for that. Natalia sighed. Then at least try not to break her heart. She's already been hurt enough. I can see it on her. She left without saying goodbye. Roman stood in the hallway and wondered when he'd become the kind of man who held on to things he had no right to keep. That night, Ivy knocked on his office door. Roman looked up from his desk. Yes? Can I talk to you? If this is about Natalia, it's not. Ivy stepped inside. I need to tell you something. Roman leaned back in his chair. I'm listening. I've been writing a book. Whatever he'd expected, it wasn't that. A book. A novel. Romance. I've been publishing it online under a pen name. It's doing well. Really well, actually. People are reading it, buying it. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm making money. Not a lot yet, but enough that I could... She stopped, started again. I could leave if I wanted to, find my own place. Stop being whatever this is. Roman felt something cold settle in his chest. Is that what you want? I don't know, Ivy said honestly. I don't know what I want anymore. When I came here, I just needed to survive. But now I have something of my own. Something that's mine. And I don't know if I should stay in a situation where I'm someone's possession or if I should try to build something real for myself. You could do both. Could I? Because it feels like as long as I'm here, I belong to you. Those are the rules. You made them very clear. Roman stood up and walked around the desk until he was standing in front of her, close enough to touch. What do you want me to say, Ivy? I want you to tell me the truth. Do you want me here because you need a housekeeper and arm candy for your meetings, or do you want me here for some other reason? He could lie, should push her away before this got any more complicated. But he was tired of lying. I don't know, Roman said. I brought you here because I was curious, because I thought maybe if I had something soft and alive in my house, I'd remember how to feel something. But it didn't work. I still don't feel anything, except... He stopped. Except what? Except I notice when you're not around. I notice when you stop doing the little things. I notice when you look at me like I'm a stranger instead of... He couldn't finish that sentence. Ivy was staring at him. Instead of what? Roman reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers brushing her cheek. She didn't pull away. Instead of someone who matters, he said quietly. The words hung between them, fragile and dangerous. Then Ivy did something he didn't expect. She kissed him. It was brief, tentative, over almost before it began. When she pulled back, her eyes were wide, shocked at her own boldness. I shouldn't have... She started. Roman kissed her back. This time it wasn't tentative. This time it was hungry and desperate, and 3 months of tension finally breaking. His hands tangled in her hair, and she made a small sound against his mouth, and suddenly they were moving, stumbling toward the desk, his office door still open, neither of them caring. He lifted her onto the desk, and she wrapped her legs around his waist, and for the first time in 3 years, Roman Varela felt something. Want, need. The dangerous, terrifying possibility of caring about another person. He broke the kiss and rested his forehead against hers, both of them breathing hard. This is a bad idea, he said. I know, Ivy whispered. This changes everything. I know. I'll hurt you. Probably. Roman pulled back to look at her. Her lips were swollen, her eyes dark, her hair messy from his hands. She looked wrecked and beautiful, and entirely too breakable. Stay, he said. It wasn't a command. It was a plea. Ivy searched his face. On what terms? New ones. We'll figure it out as we go. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. She looked at him for a long time. Then she nodded. Okay, she said. I'll stay. And Roman knew, with absolute certainty, that he'd just crossed a line he could never uncross. He just hoped they'd both survive what came next. They didn't talk about it. The kiss. The way he'd touched her. The words he'd said that sounded dangerously close to a confession. When morning came, Roman left before Ivy woke up, and by the time she made it downstairs, there was a note on the counter in his sharp handwriting. Business in Los Angeles. Back Thursday. 3 days away. Ivy crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. She spent those 3 days writing, poured everything into her story, the confusion and anger and the terrifying realization that she was falling for a man who'd made it clear he didn't know how to fall back. Her readers ate it up. The chapter where her heroine finally confronted the crime lord who owned her heart got 5,000 comments in 6 hours. People were obsessed. They wanted more. They wanted the happy ending Ivy wasn't sure she'd get in real life. Her book sales tripled. By Wednesday night, she had $12,000 in her account from royalties and pre-orders for the next installment. Enough to leave. Enough to start over somewhere Roman would never find her. She stared at the number on her laptop screen and felt sick. Roman came home Thursday afternoon while she was in the kitchen pretending to care about making lunch. She heard the front door, heard his footsteps, and her whole body went tense. He appeared in the doorway still wearing his travel clothes, looking tired and distant and exactly like the man who'd pulled her out of an alley 4 months ago. "You're back," Ivy said. "I'm back. How was Los Angeles?" "Productive." The conversation was stiff, formal, nothing like the raw honesty that had passed between them in his office. Ivy turned back to the cutting board and started chopping vegetables she didn't need. "We should talk," Roman said. "About what?" "About what happened before I left." "You mean when you kissed me and then disappeared for 3 days?" Ivy didn't look at him. "What's there to talk about?" "Ivy, it's fine, Roman. You made yourself clear. You wanted to see if you could still feel something, and apparently you can't, so let's just move on." She heard him move closer, felt him standing behind her. "That's not what I said," Roman told her. "Then what did you say?" "Because from where I'm standing, it sounded a lot like you were using me as an experiment to see if your heart still works." "Maybe I was." Ivy spun around, the knife still in her hand. "You're unbelievable. Put the knife down. Don't tell me what to do." "Ivy, put it down." She looked at the blade in her hand like she'd forgotten she was holding it, set it on the counter. Her hands were shaking. "I can't do this," she said. "I can't be whatever you need me to be one day and nothing the next. I can't live in this house waiting for you to decide whether I matter or not." "You matter." "Do I?" "Because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like I'm still furniture, just prettier furniture now that you've decided you might want to touch it." Roman's jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "None of this is fair. You brought me here. You made the rules. You told me I belonged to you. And then you kissed me like I was the only real thing in your world and ran away before I could ask what that meant." "I didn't run away." "Yes, you did." They stared at each other across the kitchen, and Ivy could see something working behind his eyes. Some calculation he was running, some risk he was measuring. "I don't know how to do this," Roman said finally. "Do what?" "Care about someone, want someone. I spent 3 years making sure I couldn't, and now you're here, and I—" He stopped. Started again. "I went to Los Angeles because I needed to think. I needed to figure out if this was real or if I was just fixating on you because you're the first person who's made me feel anything in a long time." "And?" Ivy's voice was barely a whisper. "And I spent 3 days in meetings thinking about you instead of listening to anything anyone said. I closed a deal worth $2 million, and all I could think about was whether you were still here when I got back." Ivy's breath caught. "So yes," Roman continued, "you matter. You matter more than you should, and I don't know what to do about that except—" He moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off him. "Except, stop pretending I don't want you." "Roman," he cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. "I'm going to hurt you. I don't know how not to, but I'm asking you to stay anyway." "That's not fair," Ivy whispered. "I know. I should leave." "Probably." "I have enough money now, from the book. I could—" Roman kissed her before she could finish the sentence. This time it was different, slower, deliberate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. Ivy's hands came up to grip his shirt, and she kissed him back, hating herself for wanting this, for wanting him despite every logical reason to run. When they broke apart, Roman rested his forehead against hers. "Don't go," he said. "Give me a reason to stay." "I don't have one, not a good one." "Then give me a bad one." Roman pulled back to look at her. "I'm in love with you." The words hit like a physical blow. Ivy stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "What?" "I'm in love with you," Roman repeated. "I don't know when it happened. I don't know how. But somewhere between you making me dinner and sitting on my couch pretending to read and refusing to tell me about your book, I fell in love with you. And I have no idea what to do about it." Ivy couldn't breathe. "You don't mean that." "I do." "You don't even know me." "I know you're stronger than you think you are. I know you're running from something you won't talk about. I know you write romance novels because you want to believe in happy endings, even though everything in your life has taught you not to. I know you hate sleeping alone, but you never ask me to stay. I know." "Stop." Ivy pulled away from him, wrapping her arms around herself. "Just stop." "Why?" "Because you're saying exactly what I want to hear, and I don't trust it. I don't trust you. How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? Another way to keep me here because I'm convenient or useful? But you're not convenient," Roman cut her off. "You're the most inconvenient thing that's ever happened to me. You make me want things I can't have. You make me feel things I spent years learning to bury. You're a disaster for every plan I've ever made. But I love you anyway." Ivy felt tears burning behind her eyes. "I can't do this if you're lying." "I'm not lying." "How do I know?" Roman took her hand and placed it over his heart. She could feel it hammering against her palm. "Because I've never been this scared in my life," he said. They stood there in the kitchen with sunlight pouring through the windows, and Ivy's hand pressed against Roman's chest, and she felt something break open inside her, some last wall she'd been hiding behind. "I love you too," she whispered. "I've loved you for weeks, and I hated myself for it because I knew it was stupid and dangerous, and—" Roman kissed her again, and this time neither of them pulled away. They made it as far as the couch in the living room before clothes started coming off. Ivy's dress, Roman's shirt, the careful distance they'd maintained for 4 months dissolving into desperate hands and broken breathing, and the kind of honesty that only came from skin against skin. He was gentle in a way she hadn't expected, his hands mapping her body like he was afraid she might disappear if he moved too fast. "Tell me if you want me to stop," Roman said against her neck. "Don't stop." "Ivy, I mean it. Don't stop." So he didn't. Afterward, they lay tangled together on the couch, Ivy's head on Roman's chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. The sun was setting, painting the room in shades of orange and gold, and for the first time since she'd arrived in Las Vegas, Ivy felt safe. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "I don't know." That's not reassuring. "I'm not good at reassuring." Ivy tilted her head to look at him. "You're not good at a lot of things." "Name 3. Communication, emotional availability, not being terrifying." Roman's mouth twitched. "Fair. But you're good at other things." "Like what?" "Making me feel like I matter. Making me feel safe. Making me—" She stopped. "Making you what?" "Believe that maybe I deserve something good." Roman's hand stilled on her shoulder. He looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You deserve better than me." "Probably. But I don't want better. I want you. Even though I'm going to screw this up? Even though my life is dangerous and complicated and full of people who would hurt you to get to me?" Ivy propped herself up on one elbow. "Is that what you're worried about? That someone will use me against you?" "It's what I know will happen eventually. Then we'll deal with it when it does." "Ivy, you don't understand." "I understand that you're scared. I understand that you spent 3 years convincing yourself you didn't need anyone. But you do need someone, Roman. You need me. And I need you. So we can either spend all our time worrying about what might go wrong, or we can try to make this work." Roman stared at her. Then he pulled her down and kissed her forehead. "When did you get so brave?" "When I stopped having anything left to lose." They stayed on the couch until the room went dark, neither of them wanting to move, both of them knowing this moment of peace was temporary. Eventually, Roman's phone buzzed with messages he couldn't ignore. He checked it reluctantly, his expression hardening as he read. "What is it?" Ivy asked. "Family business. I have to go." Now? In an hour. He looked at her. Come with me. Where?
A dinner. My mother's hosting. The whole family will be there. Ivy sat up, suddenly very aware that she was naked. You want me to meet your mother? I want you to be there, as my... He paused. What are we calling this? I don't know. What do you want to call it? Mine, Roman said simply. Ivy felt heat rise in her cheeks. That's not a relationship status. It is for me. Roman. Fine. My girlfriend, my partner. Whatever term makes you comfortable. I'm not comfortable with any of this.
Good. That makes two of us. He stood and started pulling on his clothes. Get dressed. We leave in 40 minutes. Ivy stayed on the couch, watching him button his shirt with the same efficiency he did everything. What if your family hates me? They will. That's not helping. Roman came back to the couch and crouched in front of her, taking her hands. My family is going to hate you because they don't understand why I'd choose someone who isn't part of their world. They're going to look at you and see weakness and vulnerability and everything they've spent generations trying to eliminate. But I don't care what they think. I care what you think. I think you're asking me to walk into a room full of people who will judge me before I open my mouth. Yes. And you think that's a good idea? No. But I'm doing it anyway. He squeezed her hands. You can say no. You can stay here. But I want you there. I want them to see that you're with me. He stopped. You want what? I want to stop hiding you. The words settled between them, heavy with implication. Ivy knew what he was really saying, that keeping her secret meant keeping her safe, but it also meant keeping her separate, keeping her less than. And if they were going to try to make this real, that had to change. Okay, she said. I'll go. Roman's relief was visible. Thank you. But if anyone makes me cry, I'm leaving and never coming back. Fair enough. 40 minutes later, Ivy stood in front of the mirror in a dress Roman had bought her, trying to convince herself she could do this. The dress was beautiful, emerald green silk that made her eyes look brighter than they were. She'd done her makeup carefully, her hair pulled back in a way that felt both elegant and like she was trying too hard. Roman appeared behind her in the mirror. You look perfect. I look terrified. That too. He wrapped his arms around her waist. We can still cancel. No, we can't. I'm serious. Say the word and we stay home. Ivy leaned back against him. I need to do this. If I'm going to be part of your life, I need to face your family eventually. Might as well be now. You're braver than I am. Or stupider. Probably both. They drove to his mother's house in tense silence. It was bigger than Roman's, older, the kind of estate that had been in families for generations. Security waved them through without question. Ivy's stomach churned as they pulled up to the front entrance. Last chance to run, Roman said. Stop asking me that. I'm serious. Ivy turned to look at him. Are you trying to talk me out of this? No. Yes. I don't know. He ran a hand through his hair. I don't want them to hurt you. They can't hurt me worse than I've already been hurt. It was the first time she'd said anything about her past, and Roman's eyes sharpened. But before he could ask, a valet was opening her door. The house was full of people. Roman's mother, Elena Varela, was holding court in the main living room, surrounded by family members Ivy couldn't identify. She was beautiful in a cold, preserved way, her hair perfectly styled, her dress probably worth more than Ivy's entire wardrobe. She looked up when Roman entered, and her smile was razor sharp. Roman, you're late. Traffic, Roman lied smoothly. Elena's eyes slid to Ivy. And who's this? This is Ivy Bennett. Ivy, my mother, Elena. Ivy extended her hand. It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Varela. Elena looked at Ivy's hand like it was something diseased. Bennett, that's not Italian. No, ma'am, it's not. Where are you from? Texas. And what do you do, Ivy from Texas? I'm a writer. A writer? Elena said it like it was the most boring profession imaginable. How quaint. What do you write? Romance novels. The room had gone quiet. Ivy could feel every eye on her, every person measuring her and finding her wanting. Romance novels, Elena repeated. Well, I suppose everyone needs a hobby. It's not a hobby.
Ivy said before she could stop herself. It's my career. I make a living from it. How nice for you. Elena's smile didn't reach her eyes. Roman, darling, can I speak with you? Privately? No, Roman said. Excuse me? Whatever you want to say, you can say in front of Ivy.
Elena's expression hardened. Very well. What exactly is she doing here? This is a family dinner. She's with me. With you. Elena looked between them, and Ivy watched understanding dawn. Oh, Roman, you can't be serious. Completely serious. You're throwing away everything we've built for some little nobody from Texas who writes romance novels? Mother, do you have any idea what this looks like? What people will say? You're supposed to be marrying Vanessa Morton in 3 months. The name hit Ivy like a punch to the gut. She turned to look at Roman. What? Roman's jaw was tight. We need to talk. You're engaged? Ivy's voice came out strangled. It's complicated. Complicated how? You're either engaged or you're not. The engagement was arranged by our families, Roman said. It's political. It doesn't mean anything. It means you're supposed to marry someone else in 3 months and you didn't think to mention that? Ivy took a step back. I need to leave. Ivy, wait. No. She was already moving toward the door. I'm such an idiot. I actually believed you when you said... Roman caught her arm. It's not real. I don't love her. I don't even like her. It's a business arrangement. Then end it. I will. When? I don't know. It's complicated. Stop saying that. Ivy jerked her arm free. Either you want to be with me or you don't. Either I matter or I'm just another possession you're collecting. Which is it, Roman? The entire room was watching them now. Elena looked furious. Natalia had appeared from somewhere, her expression caught between concern and vindication. And Roman stood there, frozen, unable to give Ivy the answer she needed. That's what I thought, Ivy said quietly. She walked out. Roman didn't follow. Ivy made it to the front entrance before the tears started. She had no car, no way to get home, no home to go to that wasn't his. She stood on the steps of Elena Varela's mansion and tried to figure out how everything had fallen apart so fast. Need a ride? She turned to find Natalia standing behind her, keys in hand. I'm fine, Ivy said. You're crying in the driveway. You're not fine. Natalia gestured to her car. Come on, I'll take you wherever you want to go. I don't have anywhere to go. Then I'll take you back to Roman's place so you can pack your stuff and get the hell out of his life before he destroys you completely. Ivy stared at her. You think I should leave? I think my brother is an emotional disaster who's going to break your heart if you let him. But I also think... Natalia paused. I think you're the first person who's ever made him want to be better. So it's your call. Stay and fight for him, or walk away while you still can. What would you do? Natalia smiled sadly. I'd run, but I'm a coward. You're not. Before Ivy could respond, Roman appeared at the door. He looked wild, disheveled, like he'd run after her. Don't go, he said. Give me one reason not to, Ivy shot back. Because I'm ending it. Tonight. I'll call Vanessa right now and tell her the engagement is off. And your mother? Your family? What about all the political complications you won't explain? I don't care. Yes, you do. I care about you more. Ivy shook her head. You don't get to do this. You don't get to keep me in the dark about your fiancé and then expect me to just accept that you'll fix it. If we're doing this, I need honesty. Complete honesty. About everything. Roman came down the steps until he was standing in front of her. You want honesty? Fine. Vanessa Morton is the daughter of the most powerful family in Las Vegas next to mine. Our engagement was arranged when we were kids. It's about territory, about combining resources, about maintaining power. I agreed to it 3 years ago because I didn't care who I married since I couldn't feel anything anyway. But that was before you. So break it off. It's not that simple. Her family won't just accept it. They'll see it as an insult. They'll retaliate. Against who? Against me. Against my family. Against you. So you'd rather marry someone you don't love than risk that? No, I'd rather keep you safe. But if ending this engagement is what it takes to prove you matter more than anything else, then I'll do it. Consequences be damned. Ivy looked at him. This man who'd pulled her from an alley, who'd brought her into his home, who'd made her fall in love with him and then revealed he was engaged to someone else. She should walk away, should protect herself before this got any worse. But she'd never been good at self-preservation. "End it," she said. "Tonight. Call her right now and end it, and then we'll talk about whether I stay." Roman pulled out his phone. He dialed a number, put it on speaker. A woman's voice answered on the third ring.
"Roman, to what do I owe the pleasure?" "Vanessa, we need to talk." "Can it wait? I'm at a charity event." "No, it can't wait." Roman looked at Ivy while he spoke. "The engagement is off." Silence on the other end. Then, "Excuse me?" "You heard me. It's over. I'm not marrying you." "Roman, what? Is this some kind of joke?" "No joke. I met someone else. I'm in love with her. I'm sorry, but the wedding's not happening."
More silence. When Vanessa spoke again, her voice was ice. "You're making a mistake." "Probably, but it's my mistake to make. My father won't allow this. Your father doesn't have a choice. You're going to regret this, Roman. You're going to regret choosing some random girl over everything our families have built. Maybe, but at least I'll regret something I chose instead of something I let happen to me." He paused. "I hope you find someone who actually loves you, Vanessa. You deserve that." He hung up. The silence that followed was deafening. Roman slipped his phone back in his pocket and looked at Ivy. "Satisfied?" he asked. Ivy's heart was pounding. "That's going to cause problems. Massive problems. Your family's going to hate me even more." "Absolutely. This is insane."
Completely insane. "So why am I smiling?" Roman smiled back, and it was the most genuine expression she'd ever seen on his face. "Because you're crazy, and because you know I just burned down my entire life for you." "That's not romantic. That's terrifying." "It's both." Ivy launched herself at him, and he caught her, and they kissed on the steps of his mother's house while Natalia watched from a distance, and an entire family imploded inside.
When they broke apart, Roman rested his forehead against hers. "What now?" Ivy whispered. "Now we go home," Roman said, "and we figure out how to survive what comes next." They got in Natalia's car. She drove them back to Roman's house without saying a word, though Ivy caught her smiling in the rearview mirror. When they pulled up to the house, Natalia turned around in her seat. "For what it's worth," she said, "I think you're good for him. I think you're the best thing that's happened to my brother in a long time. But I also think you need to be ready for war. Because the Mortons don't forgive, and my mother doesn't forget, and Roman just made you a target." "I know," Ivy said. "Do you? Because this isn't a romance novel, honey. This is real life. And in real life, people like my family don't play fair." "I'll be ready." Natalia studied her for a moment. Then she nodded. "Yeah, I think you will be." Ivy and Roman went inside. The house felt different now, charged with something new and dangerous and undeniable. They stood in the foyer and looked at each other. "You know this is crazy, right?" Ivy said. "I know." "You know we're probably going to fail?" "Probably. But you're willing to try anyway?" "For you?" Roman pulled her close. "I'd try anything." Ivy buried her face in his chest and felt his arms come around her, solid and sure and real. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Me too." "But I love you." "I love you too." They stood there holding each other in the too-big house that had become home, and both of them knew that everything was about to change. They just didn't know how much. Not yet. The war started 3 days later. Roman's mother stopped taking his calls. Business partners who'd worked with him for years suddenly had scheduling conflicts. Contracts he'd been negotiating fell through without explanation. The Mortons were making their displeasure known in the way powerful families always did, through pressure and influence and the careful dismantling of everything Roman had built. He took the calls in his office with the door closed, but Ivy could hear his voice through the walls, clipped, cold, controlled fury wrapped in perfect manners. She tried to write but couldn't focus. Her book had exploded in the week since she'd last updated it. 50,000 sales, 100,000. Numbers that should have thrilled her but felt hollow when she could hear Roman's life imploding in the next room. On the 4th day, Natalia showed up unannounced. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past Ivy into the house. "Roman's on a call." "I'm not here for Roman. I'm here for you." Natalia turned to face her. You're pregnant. Ivy's blood went cold. What? You're pregnant. I can see it on you. You've got that look. When did you find out? I'm not. Don't lie to me. How far along? Ivy's legs went weak. She sat down on the nearest chair. 6 weeks, maybe 7. I found out yesterday. Does Roman know? No.
Are you going to tell him? I don't know. Ivy pressed her hands to her face. Everything's falling apart because of me. His family hates him. His business is tanking, and now I'm going to drop this on him? How is that fair? It's not about fair, it's about honest. Natalia sat down across from her. He needs to know. He doesn't need another complication right now. You're not a complication. You're his future. And that baby you're carrying, that's his future too. Ivy looked at her. What if he doesn't want it? Then he's an idiot and you leave. But I don't think that's going to happen. How can you be sure? Because I've never seen my brother fight for anything the way he's fighting for you. He burned every bridge he had to keep you. You think a baby's going to scare him off? Maybe. You don't know what I came from, Natalia. You don't know what happened to me before Vegas. So tell me. Ivy took a shaky breath. My stepfather, he wasn't a good man. My mom married him when I was 15, and by the time I figured out what he really was, it was too late. She was trapped. I was trapped. And every day he got worse. Did he hurt you? Yes. Both of us. For years. And when I finally worked up the courage to leave, to run, I swore I'd never put myself in a position where someone had that kind of power over me again. Ivy's voice broke. But then I met Roman, and I gave him everything. And now I'm pregnant with his baby, and I'm terrified that history's going to repeat itself. Natalia reached across and took her hands. Roman is not your stepfather. I know that. Do you? Because it sounds like you're comparing a man who's risking everything for you to a man who terrorized you. I'm not comparing them. I'm scared. Of course you are. You'd be crazy not to be. But you can't let fear make your decisions. Natalia squeezed her hands. Tell him, today. Whatever happens after that, at least you'll know where you stand. Roman emerged from his office 20 minutes later looking exhausted. He found Ivy in the kitchen staring at a cup of tea she hadn't touched. I need to tell you something, they both said at the same time. Roman almost smiled. You first. No, you first. He sat down across from her. The Mortons are coming after me hard. They've frozen me out of 3 major deals this week. My mother's threatening to cut me off from family resources. And I just got word that someone's been asking questions about you. Ivy's stomach dropped. What kind of questions? Where you came from? What you're running from? They're digging into your past. Can they find anything? Depends on how deep they dig. You used a fake ID to get here, right? Yes. And you never filed a police report about your stepfather? No, I just ran. Roman nodded slowly. Then they might not find much. But if they do, they'll use it against me. Against us. Yes. Ivy felt tears burning behind her eyes. This is my fault. All of this is because I... Stop. Roman reached across the table and took her hand. None of this is your fault. I made my choice. I'd make it again. Even if it cost you everything, even then. Ivy looked at their joined hands and tried to find the courage Natalia had told her she needed. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air between them. Roman went very still. What? I'm pregnant, about 6 or 7 weeks. I found out yesterday. She forced herself to look at him. I wasn't trying to trap you or complicate things even more. I was on birth control, but it must have failed and... Ivy, stop talking. She stopped. Roman stood up and walked to the window. Stood there with his back to her, shoulders rigid. Ivy counted her heartbeats and waited for him to tell her to leave. Instead, he started laughing. It was quiet at first, then louder, almost manic. He turned around and his eyes were wet. A baby, he said. Yes. We're having a baby. Yes. In the middle of a war with the most powerful family in Vegas, with my mother wanting to disown me, with your past about to be dragged into the light, we're having a baby. I know the timing is terrible,
I know this makes everything harder. If you want me to... Roman crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. If I want you to what? Leave? Get rid of it? He cupped her face. Ivy, I love you. I want this. I want you, and I want our child, and I want everything that comes with it. Even though it's a disaster? Especially because it's a disaster. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her mouth. When did you find out? Yesterday morning. I was going to tell you, but then Natalia showed up and... Wait, how did she know before you did? She's terrifyingly perceptive. Always has been. She told me I had to tell you today. She was right. Roman pulled her closer. We're having a baby. You keep saying that like you can't believe it. I can't. 3 years ago, I thought I'd never feel anything again. Now I'm in love with you, and we're starting a family, and I'm happier than I've been in my entire life, even though everything's falling apart. Ivy buried her face in his chest. What are we going to do? We're going to fight. We're going to protect each other, and we're going to survive this. He paused. But first, we're going to tell my family. Are you insane? Your mother already hates me. She's going to hate you more when she finds out you're pregnant with her grandchild. Might as well get it over with. Roman, no, but he was already pulling out his phone. The family meeting happened that night at Elena's house. Ivy sat next to Roman on a couch that felt like a witness stand while his mother, 2 uncles, and 3 cousins stared at them with varying degrees of hostility. You've called us here for what exactly? Elena asked. Her voice could have cut glass. To inform you that Ivy's pregnant, Roman said. You're going to be a grandmother. The silence was deafening. Then one of his uncles laughed. You knocked up the romance novelist? That's your big announcement? Show some respect, Roman said quietly, but there was threat underneath. Respect? You broke off an engagement that was years in the making, insulted one of the most powerful families in this city, and now you're telling us you got some random girl pregnant? Where's the respect in that? She's not some random girl. She's the woman I love, and that child is a Varela whether you like it or not. Elena stood up. This is unacceptable. It's done. You will end this relationship. You will make amends with the Mortons, and you will handle... She gestured vaguely at Ivy. This situation appropriately. Ivy felt her hands curl into fists. This situation has a name. I don't care what your name is, dear. You're a problem that needs solving. Mother, Roman's voice was ice. If you finish that sentence, you'll never see me or your grandchild again. Elena's eyes flashed. You'd choose her over your family? I already did, remember? They stared at each other across the room, and Ivy watched generations of family loyalty crack down the middle. Then you're no son of mine, Elena said finally. Roman stood up. Fine, come on, Ivy, we're leaving. Roman, wait. Natalia had been quiet until now. Mother, stop being ridiculous. He's in love. He's happy. When's the last time any of us could say that? This isn't about happiness. This is about responsibility. Responsibility to what? A marriage contract written when we were children? A business alliance that benefits you more than it benefits him? Natalia turned to Roman. I support you, for what it's worth. It's worth everything, Roman said. They left, got in the car, drove home in silence. When they got inside, Roman pulled Ivy into his arms and just held her. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be. I just cost you your family. They cost me themselves. You gave me something better. Ivy pulled back to look at him. What's that? A reason to be more than what they made me. The next 3 months were brutal. Roman's business continued to hemorrhage deals. The Mortons blocked him at every turn, and without his family's support, he was isolated. They survived on Ivy's book money more often than Roman wanted to admit, and she watched him struggle with the pride of letting her support them. But her book sales kept climbing. She'd finished the story, all 5 parts, exactly as she'd planned. The final chapter went live on a Tuesday morning, and within 6 hours, it had been read by 200,000 people. The reviews were overwhelming. People called it the best romance they'd read all year. A publisher reached out, then another. By the end of the week, Ivy had 3 offers for a traditional book deal. She took the biggest one. The advance was enough to support them for a year, maybe more if they were careful. She signed the contract sitting at Roman's kitchen table with him watching over her shoulder, and when she put down the pen, he kissed her like she'd just saved his life. You're incredible, he said. I'm just a writer. You're so much more than that. But even with the money, things got worse before they got better. Someone started following Ivy when she left the house. Roman hired security. The security got threatened. Roman hired more. Then the photos showed up. Someone had been documenting Ivy's daily routine. Pictures of her at the grocery store, at the doctor's office for her prenatal appointments, walking in the park. They arrived in an envelope at Roman's office with no return address and a note that read, "She's not safe. Neither is the baby." Roman went cold in a way Ivy had never seen. "Pack a bag," he told her. "We're leaving." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere they can't find you." "Roman, we can't run forever." "Watch me." But before they could leave, Marcus called, "Boss, you need to come to the office. Now." "What happened?" "Just come." Roman and Ivy arrived to find his office swarmed with people. Not Morton's, not his family, someone else entirely. A woman in an expensive suit was waiting in his conference room, late 40s, sharp eyes, the kind of presence that commanded attention. "Mr. Varela," she said when Roman entered. "My name is Catherine Brune. I represent the Brune Foundation." "I've heard of you," Roman said carefully. The Brunes were old money, older than the Mortons, older than anyone. They stayed out of the criminal underworld but wielded enormous influence in Vegas society. "I'm sure you have. I'm here with an offer." "I'm not interested in—" "You haven't heard the offer yet." Catherine smiled. "I've been watching you, Mr. Varela, watching how you've conducted yourself during this unfortunate situation with the Mortons, and I'm impressed." "With what?" "With your willingness to sacrifice power for love. It's rare. Admirable, even." She glanced at Ivy. "And I understand congratulations are in order, Ms. Bennett. Your book has been quite the sensation." Ivy blinked. "You've read it?" "I've done more than read it. I've been following your career with great interest. In fact, that's why I'm here." Catherine opened a folder. "The Brune Foundation is hosting our annual charity gala in 3 weeks. It's the social event of the year. Everyone who matters in Vegas will be there. I'd like to invite you both as my personal guests." "Why?" Roman asked. "Because I believe in second chances. Because I think the Mortons have had too much power in this city for too long. And because—" She looked directly at Ivy. "I'd like to offer you the opportunity to reveal your identity as Elena Cross." Ivy's heart stopped. "How did you—" "I have excellent researchers, and I have a platform. If you're willing to step into the spotlight to claim your success publicly, I think we can shift the narrative in your favor." "And what do you get out of this?" Roman asked. "The satisfaction of watching the Mortons squirm, and possibly a new partnership with you, Mr. Varela. You're too talented to be sidelined by family drama. Work with me, and I'll make sure you have access to opportunities the Mortons can't touch." Roman looked at Ivy. "It's your choice." Ivy's mind raced. 3 weeks. A public reveal. Everything she'd built. Everything she'd hidden. Exposed to everyone who'd dismissed her. "I'll do it," she said. Catherine smiled. "Excellent. I'll have my team reach out about the details." The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Catherine's people handled everything. A stylist, a publicist, a security team that made Romans look amateur. They built Ivy's public persona from the ground up, crafted her story carefully. The struggling girl from Texas who'd become a best-selling author in secret. The romance writer who'd found her own love story in the most unexpected place. The press ate it up. By the time the gala arrived, Ivy's name was everywhere. Interviews, magazine features. Her book sales tripled again. The publisher rushed to get physical copies printed. And through it all, Roman stayed at her side. The night of the gala, Ivy stood in front of the mirror in a dress that cost more than her first car. Red silk, fitted perfectly to her now visible pregnancy. Her hair was styled in waves, her makeup flawless. She looked like someone important. She felt like she was about to throw up. Roman came up behind her, devastating in a black tuxedo. "You ready?" "No." "Good. Neither am I." "What if this backfires? What if the Mortons—" "Then we deal with it. Together." The gala was being held at the Brune family's estate, a massive property that made even Elena Varela's house look modest. Cars lined the driveway. Photographers swarmed the entrance. Ivy's hand shook as Roman helped her out of the car. "I can't do this," she whispered. "Yes, you can. Everyone's going to be looking at me. Let them look.
Let them see what I see. What do you see? The strongest person I've ever met. They walked inside together. The ballroom was packed with Vegas elite, politicians, business owners, old money, and new. Ivy recognized Elena Varela across the room, her expression glacial. The Mortons were there too, a whole cluster of them, watching with undisguised hostility.
Catherine Bruin found them immediately. Perfect timing. Are you ready? Ivy nodded, not trusting her voice. Catherine led them to a stage at the front of the room, a microphone, lights, every eye in the ballroom turning to watch. Ladies and gentlemen, Catherine's voice rang out. Thank you for joining us tonight. As you know, the Brun Foundation supports emerging artists and voices that deserve to be heard. Tonight, I'm thrilled to introduce you to one of those voices. Ivy felt Roman squeeze her hand. Most of you are familiar with the best-selling novel Shattered Crown by Elena Cross, Catherine continued. What you don't know is that Elena Cross is here tonight, and she's about to step into the light for the first time. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Catherine turned to Ivy. Ms. Bennett, would you like to say a few words? Ivy stepped up to the microphone. Her legs felt like water. She looked out at the sea of faces and saw Elena Varela's shock, the Mortons' fury, Natalia's encouraging smile, and Roman, standing just off stage, watching her like she was the only person in the room. Hi, Ivy said. Her voice shook but held. My name is Ivy Bennett, and I write romance novels under the name Elena Cross. The room erupted in whispers. 6 months ago, I came to Las Vegas with nothing. No money, no connections, no plan except to survive. I was running from a life that almost destroyed me, and I didn't think I'd ever be anything more than invisible. She paused. But then I met someone who saw me, who made me believe I was worth seeing, and I started writing. I wrote about the kind of love I wanted to believe in, the kind of love that transforms you, the kind of love that's worth fighting for. She looked at Roman. I wrote my story while living it. Every chapter, every scene, every moment of hope and heartbreak came from what I was experiencing. And now that story has touched millions of people, people who needed to believe in love as much as I did. Ivy took a breath. So to everyone who read my book and found something real in it, thank you. To everyone who told me I didn't belong in this city, in this world, in this room. She met Elena's eyes. Watch me. The applause started slowly, then built. People stood. Not everyone, but enough. Catherine embraced her when she came off stage. Magnificent. Roman pulled her into his arms. I love you. I love you too. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen. I learned from the best. But even as they celebrated, Ivy saw the Mortons conferring in the corner, saw Elena Varela leave early, her face tight with rage, saw the calculation in a dozen sets of eyes. She'd made herself visible. Now she'd made herself a target. The attack came 2 days later. Not physical, they were too smart for that. Financial, legal. Suddenly, Ivy's book was facing copyright challenges, plagiarism accusations, claims that she'd stolen content, all baseless, all designed to destroy her credibility. Roman fought back with lawyers. Catherine threw the Brun Foundation's weight behind Ivy. The publisher stood firm, but the stress was taking its toll. Ivy started having contractions at 28 weeks. Too early. Roman rushed her to the hospital where doctors managed to stop the labor, but she was put on strict bed rest. This is my fault, she said from the hospital bed. The stress, the fighting, all of it. No, Roman sat beside her, holding her hand. This is on them, not you. What if something happens to the baby? Nothing's going to happen. You can't promise that. I can promise I'll do everything in my power to keep you both safe. Ivy looked at him. At this man who'd given up everything for her, who'd walked away from his family, his business, his entire life because he loved her. We're going to win this, she said. I don't know how, but we are. I know. How can you be so sure? Roman leaned down and kissed her forehead. Because we're already won the part that matters. Everything else is just details. Ivy was released 3 days later with instructions to rest and avoid stress. Impossible advice given their situation, but she tried. Roman barely left her side. Natalia visited daily. Even Marcus started bringing by food without being asked. And slowly, the tide began to turn. Ivy's readers rallied. When the plagiarism accusations surfaced, thousands of people flooded social media defending her. Book bloggers dug into the claims and found them baseless. The publisher issued a statement standing behind her completely. The Mortons' attack backfired. Within 2 weeks, Ivy's book sales had doubled again. She'd become a symbol of something bigger, the underdog fighting against establishment power. People loved that narrative. And in Vegas, public opinion mattered. Catherine called with an update. The Mortons are backing off. They've realized that going after you is costing them more than they're gaining. What about the Varellas? Ivy asked. Elena's still angry, but she's smart enough to see which way the wind is blowing. Give it time. Time was something they had. Ivy's pregnancy progressed without further complications. Her doctor cleared her for light activity at 32 weeks. And on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, Elena Varela showed up at Roman's door. Ivy answered it, her hand instinctively going to her belly. Mrs. Varela? May I come in? Ivy stepped aside. Elena walked into the house she'd surely criticized from afar and looked around. Then she looked at Ivy, really looked at her. You're stronger than I gave you credit for, Elena said. Thank you, I think. My son loves you. I know. And you love him. More than anything. Elena nodded slowly. I came to apologize. Ivy nearly fell over. What? I was wrong. About you. About this relationship. I let pride and tradition blind me to what actually matters. She paused. My son is happier than I've seen him in years, and that's because of you. Mrs. Varela, I don't know what to… Elena, please. We're going to be family whether I like it or not. Might as well use first names. Roman appeared at the top of the stairs. He froze when he saw his mother. Mother. Roman. Elena looked between them. I came to make amends, to both of you. Why now? Because I watched Ivy speak at that gala. I watched her stand in front of everyone who'd dismissed her and claim her power. And I realized she's exactly the kind of woman this family needs. Elena's expression softened. I'm sorry for everything, and I'd like to try again, if you'll let me. Roman came down the stairs slowly. He stopped next to Ivy and took her hand. On one condition, he said, you treat Ivy with the respect she deserves. Not as my girlfriend, not as the mother of your grandchild, but as the incredible woman she is. Agreed. And you stop trying to control my life. That one's going to be harder, but I'll try. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't even close to perfect, but it was a start. Elena stayed for dinner. Awkward small talk gradually gave way to actual conversation. By the time she left, she'd extracted a promise from Ivy to bring the baby to visit after it was born. When the door closed behind her, Roman pulled Ivy into his arms. That just happened, Ivy said. That just happened. Your mother apologized to me. I heard it too. I think I'm in shock. Roman laughed and kissed the top of her head. We're going to be okay. Yeah? Yeah. And for the first time in months, Ivy actually believed it. 3 weeks before Ivy's due date, Roman proposed. Not with fanfare or planning, just the two of them in the kitchen at 2 a.m. when Ivy couldn't sleep because the baby was using her ribs as a trampoline. Roman had come downstairs to find her eating ice cream straight from the container, and he'd sat down across from her and pulled a ring box from his pocket. Marry me, he said. Ivy looked at the box, then at him. Are you serious right now? Completely serious. I'm 8 months pregnant, eating ice cream in my pajamas at 2 a.m., and you're proposing? Yes. This is the least romantic proposal in history. Probably. Roman opened the box. The ring inside was simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the kitchen light. But I don't want to wait anymore. I don't want to do some big production or plan the perfect moment. I just want you to be my wife. Ivy felt tears spring to her eyes. Hormones, probably, but also something deeper. We've only known each other 7 months. I know. We're still figuring out how to be together. I know that too. Your family's just barely accepted me. I don't care. Roman, Ivy. He took her hand. I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to raise our daughter together. I want to wake up every morning knowing you're mine and I'm yours.
So please, marry me.
Ivy looked at this man who'd pulled her from an alley, who'd given her a home when she had nothing, who'd risked everything to keep her. This man who was still learning how to feel but was trying so hard because of her. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. Roman slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her across the kitchen table, and Ivy thought maybe this was the most romantic proposal after all, because it was real, because it was them. They told his family the next day. Elena actually smiled. Natalia cried. Even Roman's uncles offered grudging congratulations. We should have an engagement party, Elena said. Something proper. Let me plan it. Mother, Roman started, please, let me do this. Let me show Vegas that the Varellas stand behind this union. Roman looked at Ivy. She nodded. Fine, he said, but nothing over the top. Elena's idea of nothing over the top was 200 guests, an orchestra, and enough flowers to supply a funeral home for a month. The party was scheduled for the following weekend at the Varela estate. Ivy spent the week before trying to find something to wear that would fit over her massive belly and make her feel less like a parade float. She finally settled on a navy blue dress that was elegant enough for the occasion and comfortable enough that she could breathe. The day of the party, she felt off. Nothing specific, just a vague unease that she couldn't shake. Her back hurt. She was more tired than usual. She told herself it was just nerves. Roman noticed anyway. You okay? Fine. Just tired. We can cancel. Your mother would murder us both. I'm fine. Really. They arrived at the estate to find it transformed into something out of a magazine. Lights everywhere. Music drifting from the ballroom. Guests already mingling on the terrace. Ivy took Roman's arm and tried to ignore the tightness in her lower back. The first hour passed in a blur of introductions and congratulations. People Ivy had never met telling her how happy they were for her. Business associates of Roman sizing her up with new respect now that she was officially going to be family. Catherine Brune was there, beaming like a proud parent. Ivy excused herself to the bathroom twice. The third time, Natalia followed her. Are you in labor? Natalia asked bluntly. No, I don't know. Something feels weird. Weird how? Like pressure, and my back hurts. Ivy, those are contractions. They can't be. I'm not due for 3 weeks. Babies don't care about due dates. How far apart? Ivy thought about it. The tightness in her back had been coming and going all evening. I don't know, 10 minutes? 15? We need to tell Roman. No, not yet. This party is for us. I'm not ruining it because I'm uncomfortable. If you're in labor, I'll know if I'm in labor. Right now I'm just having some back pain. It's probably nothing. It wasn't nothing. By the time they cut the cake an hour later, Ivy's contractions were 7 minutes apart and getting stronger. She gripped Roman's hand during the toast and tried to smile through the pain. Roman leaned down and whispered, "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Don't lie to me. I think I might be in labor." Roman's eyes went wide. "What?" "Maybe. I'm not sure. But we should probably—" Her water broke. Right there in the middle of the ballroom, in front of 200 people in a puddle that soaked through her dress and onto the marble floor. The room went silent. Then everything happened at once. Roman was calling for the car. Natalia was grabbing Ivy's arm. Elena was shouting orders at staff. Guests were backing away like Ivy might explode. "I'm so sorry," Ivy gasped. "I'm ruining everything." "Shut up," Roman said, but gently. He scooped her into his arms. "We're going to the hospital. Now." The drive was a nightmare. Contractions were coming every 5 minutes now, hard enough that Ivy couldn't breathe through them. Roman held her hand and looked more terrified than she'd ever seen him. "You're okay," he kept saying. "You're going to be okay." "I know." "The baby's going to be okay." "I know." "I love you." "I know that too. Now please drive faster." They made it to the hospital with minutes to spare. The nurses took one look at Ivy and rushed her into a delivery room. Roman refused to leave her side. "I can't do this," Ivy said between contractions. "It's too early. Something's wrong." "Nothing's wrong," the doctor said calmly. "Babies come when they're ready. Let's check how dilated you are." 8 centimeters. The baby was coming whether they were ready or not. The next 2 hours were a blur of pain and pressure, and Roman's voice in her ear telling her she could do this.
She was strong. Just a little more. Ivy squeezed his hand hard enough to leave bruises and screamed through contractions that felt like they were tearing her apart. I can see the head, the doctor said. One more push, Ivy. I can't. Yes, you can. Come on. Ivy bore down with everything she had, and suddenly there was release and crying, and the doctor was holding up a tiny, perfect baby girl covered in vernix and blood, and absolutely beautiful. It's a girl, the doctor said, as if they hadn't known. She's small, but she's breathing on her own. Good lungs. They placed the baby on Ivy's chest, and she stared down at this tiny person she'd made, this impossible creature who was half her and half Roman and entirely her own. Hi, Ivy whispered. Hi, baby girl. Roman was crying, actually crying, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his daughter. She's perfect, he said. She's early. She's perfect. The baby weighed 5 pounds, 4 ounces. Small, but healthy. They kept her in the NICU for observation overnight while Ivy recovered. Roman split his time between the two rooms, refusing to leave either of them for long. At 3 a.m, he came back to find Ivy awake, staring at the ceiling. Can't sleep? He asked. Too wired, too scared, too everything. Roman sat on the edge of her bed. She's doing great. The nurses said her vitals are perfect. I know, I can't stop thinking about what could have gone wrong. What if she'd come even earlier? What if there had been complications? But there weren't. She's healthy. You're healthy. Everything turned out okay. Ivy looked at him. Are you scared? Terrified. Me too. But we'll figure it out, just like we figured out everything else. What if we mess her up? What if we're terrible parents? Then we'll be terrible parents together. Roman took her hand. Ivy, I spent 3 years thinking I couldn't feel anything, couldn't love anything, and then you happened. And now we have a daughter, and I feel everything, so much it scares me, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Even though it's terrifying, especially because it's terrifying, that's how I know it matters. They sat together in the quiet hospital room, two people who'd found each other by accident and built something real out of chaos and hope. The baby came home 5 days later. They named her Sophia, after Roman's grandmother, who'd been the only kind person in his childhood. Sophia Varela, 5 pounds of possibility wrapped in pink blankets. The house transformed overnight. Diapers and bottles and a bassinet next to their bed. Ivy learned to function on 2 hours of sleep. Roman learned to change diapers with the same efficiency he negotiated business deals. Elena visited every other day, bringing food and advice and an unexpected tenderness when she held her granddaughter. Natalia came by to help with night feedings. Even Marcus stopped in, looking completely out of his depth around the tiny baby. But the peace didn't last. 3 weeks after Sophia was born, Ivy's stepfather found her. She was alone in the house when the doorbell rang. Roman was at a meeting. The security team was changing shifts. Ivy answered the door with Sophia in her arms and came face to face with the man she'd been running from for 8 months. Dale Bennett stood on the doorstep, older and meaner than she remembered. His eyes went to the baby, then back to her face. Well, well, he said. Look at you, all grown up and playing house. Ivy's blood turned to ice. How did you find me? Wasn't hard. You're famous now. Elena Cross. He said the name mockingly. Saw you all over the news, my little stepdaughter, the big-time author. You need to leave. That's no way to greet family. You're not my family. Your mama thought different before she died. Ivy felt the world tilt. What? Oh, you didn't know. She passed 2 months ago. Heart attack. Thought you might want to come to the funeral, but you were too busy living your fancy life to care. Tears burned behind Ivy's eyes. You're lying. Check the obituaries. Martha Bennett, survived by loving husband Dale. He smiled, and it was cruel. She never stopped asking about you, wondering where you went, why you left her. I left to save myself from you. Is that the story you were telling? That I was the bad guy? Dale took a step forward. Ivy instinctively backed up, clutching Sophia tighter. I gave you a home, fed you, kept a roof over your head, and you ran away like an ungrateful little... Get out. Not until I get what I came for. There's nothing here for you. I think there is. See, I'm thinking a successful author like you, living in a house like this, married to money, you could spare a little for the man who raised you. You didn't raise me. You terrorized me. Call it what you want. I want $50,000. Today.
Or I start making phone calls, telling people about the real Ivy Bennett, the one who stole from her own family, the one who abandoned her dying mother, the one... He didn't get to finish. Roman appeared behind him, silent as death. His hand closed on Dale's shoulder and spun him around. "Who the hell are you?" Dale sputtered. "I'm the man whose house you just walked into uninvited. I'm the man whose fiancé you just threatened. And I'm the man who's about to make you regret every word you just said." Roman's voice was quiet, controlled, and absolutely lethal. Dale tried to pull away. Roman's grip tightened. "Ivy, take Sophia upstairs," Roman said without looking at her. "Roman, now." Ivy went, climbed the stairs on shaking legs and closed the bedroom door behind her, held her daughter, and tried not to imagine what was happening downstairs. She heard raised voices, a crash, more yelling, then silence. 5 minutes later, Roman came upstairs. His knuckles were bleeding. There was a look in his eyes she'd never seen before, something cold and dark and ancient. "Is he gone?" Ivy asked. "He's gone. He won't be coming back." "What did you do? What needed to be done?" Roman sat down beside her and took Sophia gently, held his daughter with bloody hands that had just hurt someone, and looked at her with such love it made Ivy's chest ache. "He'll never touch you again, I promise." "He said my mother died." Roman looked at her. "I know, I heard. I didn't get to say goodbye." "I'm sorry." Ivy felt tears spill over. She stayed with him all those years, and she stayed, and I left her there. "You did what you had to do to survive. I abandoned her." "No." Roman set Sophia in her bassinet and pulled Ivy into his arms. "You saved yourself. That's not abandonment. That's survival. It doesn't feel like survival. It feels like I failed her. She failed you by not protecting you from him. That's not your burden to carry." Ivy cried against his chest while he held her, and Sophia slept peacefully in her bassinet, oblivious to the darkness that had just tried to reach them. When Ivy finally pulled back, she saw the blood on Roman's knuckles again. "Let me clean that," she said. "It's fine." "No, it's not. You hurt someone because of me. I hurt someone who threatened my family. I'd do it again." Ivy got the first aid kit anyway, sat him down and cleaned the blood from his hands while he watched her. "Is this who you are?" she asked quietly. "The man who solves problems with violence?" "Sometimes, when there's no other choice." "That scares me." "It should. But it also makes me feel safe." "How messed up is that?" Roman caught her hand. "Nothing about love is clean or simple. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes it means doing things you never thought you'd do. I won't apologize for protecting you. I'm not asking you to apologize. I need to know that you won't become what he was, that you won't let that violence turn into something ugly." "I won't, I promise." "How can you be sure?" "Because I have something he never had, something to protect that's worth more than power or control or fear." He looked at Sophia, then back at Ivy. "I have love, real love, and that changes everything." 2 days later, they got married. Not the big wedding Elena wanted to plan, just the two of them, Sophia, Natalia as witness, and a judge who owed Roman a favor. They stood in the living room of the house where Ivy had first agreed to stay, and they promised to love each other through everything that came next. Roman slid a simple gold band onto Ivy's finger next to her engagement ring. She did the same for him, and just like that, they were married. "That's it?" Natalia said afterward. "No flowers? No party?" "We had our party," Roman said. "This is better." And it was. Elena was furious when she found out, but got over it when they promised to do a proper reception later. The Mortons sent a grudging congratulations through Catherine Brune. Ivy's publisher sent champagne. Life settled into a new rhythm. Ivy wrote during Sophia's naps, building her second book with the same intensity she'd built the first. Roman slowly rebuilt his business relationships, this time on his own terms, partnering with Catherine and the Brunn Foundation rather than relying on family connections. They fought sometimes. About money? About whose turn it was to handle the 3 a.m. feeding. About whether Sophia's cry meant she was hungry or just fussy. Normal things, married things, but they always came back together. 6 months after Sophia was born, Ivy's second book released. It outsold the first one in the first week. The reviews called it even better, more mature, deeper. A year after Sophia was born, Roman opened his own venture capital firm with Catherine as a partner. Within 3 months, it was profitable. 2 years after Sophia was born, they bought a bigger house. Not as ostentatious as Elena's, but theirs, with a yard where Sophia could play and an office where Ivy could write and enough space for both of them to breathe. 3 years after Sophia was born, Roman came home and found Ivy staring at a pregnancy test on the bathroom counter. "Again?" he said. "Again." "Are we insane?" Completely. He picked her up and spun her around, and Ivy laughed, and Sophia ran into the bathroom demanding to know what was happening. "You're going to be a big sister," Roman told their daughter. Sophia's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? Can I name the baby?" "Absolutely not," Ivy said. They had a son 9 months later, Lucas. Healthy, loud, impossible. Roman cried again, just like he had with Sophia. 5 years after that first night in the alley, Ivy sat at her desk and finished her 5th book. This one was different. Not a romance, though there was love in it. A story about survival and strength and finding yourself in the wreckage of everything you thought you knew. She dedicated it to her mother. The book debuted at #1 on every list that mattered. Critics called it her best work. Readers called it transformative. And in the acknowledgments, Ivy wrote, "To Roman, who taught me that being broken doesn't mean being beyond repair. To Sophia and Lucas, who showed me what love looks like when it's pure and uncomplicated. And to everyone who's ever run from something that hurt them, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become next." 10 years after that first night in the alley, Roman and Ivy stood on the balcony of their house and watched their children play in the yard below. Sophia was 12 now, all long legs and attitude. Lucas was 7, all energy and questions. "You ever think about how we started?" Ivy asked. "Every day? Do you regret any of it?" Roman turned to look at her. She was 33 now, lines at the corners of her eyes from smiling, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing one of his old shirts. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "Not 1 second," he said. "Not even the parts where we almost destroyed each other? Especially not those parts. They made us who we are." Ivy leaned against him. "I love you. I love you too. Even though I'm difficult and stubborn, and I still don't know how to properly load a dishwasher? Even though all of that? Even though I'm never going to be the kind of wife your mother wanted for you? Especially because of that." Down in the yard, Sophia was teaching Lucas how to climb the tree near the fence. Ivy watched them and felt her heart swell. "We did okay, didn't we?" she said. "We did better than okay." "Yeah? Yeah." Because here was the truth they'd learned the hard way. Love wasn't about being perfect. It wasn't about smooth transitions or easy answers or problems that solved themselves. Love was about showing up, about fighting for each other, about choosing to stay even when staying was hard. Love was about a man who'd forgotten how to feel, learning to feel everything. Love was about a girl who'd run from darkness, learning to stand in the light. Love was about 2 broken people building something whole. Roman had thought he'd never feel anything again until Ivy stumbled into his life bleeding and desperate. She'd thought she'd never be safe until he'd given her shelter and demanded nothing in return. They'd both been wrong. He'd felt everything because of her. She'd found safety in her own strength, not his protection, and together they'd built a life that was messy and imperfect and absolutely real. Elena came to Sunday dinners now. Natalia was Sophia's godmother and Lucas's favorite aunt. Marcus had retired but still stopped by to check on them. Catherine Brun had become a close friend and mentor. The Mortons had eventually made peace, realizing that fighting the Varellas cost more than cooperating. Dale Bennett had disappeared and never resurfaced. Ivy had made her peace with her mother's death, understanding that she couldn't save someone who wouldn't save themselves. And through it all, Roman and Ivy had loved each other. Not perfectly, not smoothly, but completely. That night, after the kids were in bed, they lay together in the dark. "I never thanked you," Ivy said. "For what?" "For seeing me. That first night. You could have walked past me in that alley, but you didn't." "I couldn't." "Why?" Roman was quiet for a moment. Because you looked the way I felt, lost, scared, like the world had chewed you up and spit you out. And I thought, if I could help you, maybe it would mean I wasn't completely empty. And did it? Help? You saved my life, Ivy. You gave me a reason to feel again. You gave me a family. You gave me everything. You gave me everything too. They lay there holding each other, and outside the window, Vegas glittered in the distance, still promising transformation to anyone brave enough or desperate enough or stupid enough to believe. But Roman and Ivy didn't need Vegas anymore. They'd found what they were looking for in each other. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.